At the beginning of the story, we see a rather naive man named Henry working his night shift at a toll booth. His face suggested that his life was completely bleak. When he arrived home in the morning, his wife said the same thing. "You don't love me anymore, do you? I remember when you did. Everything was so different." They were still talking when someone knocked loudly on the door. When Henry opened the door, his friend Eddie was standing there. With him was a man named Joe, who seemed to be in very bad shape and was vomiting repeatedly. Debbie, a nurse, brought Joe inside to help. Then Eddie told Henry, his basketball team has a game today. You should play in his place, because he won't be able to play in this condition. Henry tried to refuse, but Eddie took him with him, putting on his jersey. Henry asked where the game was being played. Eddie replied, "It's not far from here. It'll only take 15 minutes. Just then, Eddie asked him to stop the car and drove off, saying, "We'll be back in a little while. We're just going to get some groceries. You stay here and keep the car running. Is that okay?" As they left, Eddie and two of his companions put on masks. Henry didn't even know the other two. All three of them took out their guns and stormed into the bank. Poor Henry had no idea that Eddie and his companions were here to rob the bank, and that he was their driver. Furthermore, they had stolen the car, having removed the wiring and started it. A short while later, they left the bank and started running around. Just then, a guard spotted Henry. He was wearing a t-shirt identical to the thieves'. Consequently, he was arrested. The police tried repeatedly to get Henry to reveal the names of his companions, but Henry knew no one besides Eddie. He was so naive that he didn't even mention Eddie's name, thinking, whatever he is, he's my friend. For this reason, Henry was sentenced to 3 years in prison for attempting to rob a bank. Upon entering prison, he met Max. Max began to speak very well with Henry. The next day, over breakfast, Max told Henry that every prisoner here had a dream, but then something unfortunate happened in their lives, and they ended up here. "What is your dream?" Henry replied, "I don't have any." Hearing this, Max said, "Not having a dream is the biggest crime, so tell me, what is your dream?" Henry replied, and Max replied, "What's the point of a life without dreams?" 6 months passed like this. Debbie came to visit Henry in prison and said, "I have something important to tell you." Debbie told him, "I'm in love with someone," but Henry, with a big heart, said, "It's okay, I just want you to be happy. If you can't live with me, then with someone else." Meanwhile, Max now felt like home to prison. All the inmates started talking among themselves. "The last time a parole officer asked you, 'What would you do for us if we let you out, Max?' What did you say, Max?" Max replied, "I'll break into your house and kill your dog. I'll set your house on fire and cut out the tongues of every living thing in it." Later, Henry was asked, "When's your review?" Henry replied, "Next month." Then, another inmate said, "Everyone believes Henry is honest." Henry also said, "I haven't committed a crime." Max told him, "You've served time in prison, so no matter what you say, everyone outside will think you've committed a crime." Soon, Henry was released from prison, and the first thing he did was go to see Debbie. But when Joe opened the door, he was shocked. And what's more, Debbie was carrying his baby. Seeing all this, Henry reflected on how his life had changed so drastically. Debbie showed Henry all his belongings and asked him what he was going to do next. Henry didn't answer, and then Joe arrived. He offered Henry a business deal and said, "Thank you for not mentioning my name in court." Henry replied, "I don't even know your name," and quietly left. Later, Henry stopped in front of the bank where the whole incident had started. Just then, a car hit him, knocking him to the ground. The car was driven by a woman named Julie. Julie cursed Henry and asked if he was okay. Just then, the bank guard arrived and ordered an ambulance, but Henry refused. The guard then helped him to a nearby cafe. Julie followed them, and Henry told her, "I've seen you somewhere." Julie said, "Don't look at me, just look at the street," and then left. When Henry went to the bathroom, he noticed a news item posted on the wall. The 80-year-old newspaper cutting contained an article about a bank robbery. The robbery was carried out through an underground tunnel connected to a theater behind the bank. This tunnel runs directly beneath the bank's vault. Henry then went straight to prison to meet Max and told him, "I've found my dream. Robbing the bank is what brought me here. If I have to serve my sentence, at least I can steal." Max was at a loss. Henry asked, "Will you help me rob the bank?" Max asked, "Do you have a plan, or are you just running around like crazy?" Henry replied, "Don't worry, I have a top-class plan." After all this, Henry went to the theater, where Julie was rehearsing her play. While she was performing, her director began scolding her, saying, "You can't do this. Julie angrily went to get coffee. As she left, she asked Henry if he was following her. Henry refused and followed her to a coffee shop. Over coffee, Henry began praising Julia's acting skills. Julie then thanked Henry for not complaining about the accident, and that Max had also applied for parole in prison. After a few questions, he was also granted leave. Henry had already instructed Max on how to behave in front of officers. When Henry came to pick him up outside the prison, Max asked him, "Where's your car?" Henry replied, "I don't have a car." In fact, Henry had come to pick him up on foot. Max became enraged. "What fool have I been so foolish to have come out? Take me back. I don't want to go out." But when Henry explained his plan to Max, Max, shocked, said, "That's your plan. A bank was robbed in the same manner 80 years ago, and you have guns, or anything like that." But Henry refused, saying, "I don't want to harm anyone." Max replied, "Yes, Mother Teresa, that's a very good idea. But since the last robbery, it's possible the bankers may have moved the safe's location, and it might not even be above that tunnel anymore. To find out, they'll have to go to the bank." Once inside, they met with the assistant manager. The guard watched them closely as they entered. While talking to the assistant manager, Max cleverly confirmed that the safe had never been moved from its place since the bank was built. He did all this so cleverly that the manager didn't even suspect a word, but the guard was still watching them. Afterward, the two went to the theater to investigate the tunnel. Julia was surprised to see Henry there again, and this time, Max was with her. But then, Max blurted out, "When I was young, I made a lot of moves here. I brought Henry here to show him this. Do you mind if I see the theater from inside?" As they entered, Julie asked Max which plays he had performed here. Max immediately mentioned Shakespeare. Max then said, "I have so many memories here, so I want to see every corner of the theater." Max granted permission. As Max left, Julie asked Henry, "Is he your father?" Henry replied, No, just a good friend." Meanwhile, a man from the theater took Max to the tunnel door, showing him the theater, and Max began inspecting it. When Julia asked Henry, "What do you do?" Henry simply replied, "I've just been released from prison. I don't do anything right now." Julia was shocked. "Why were you in jail? You must have committed some murder or something." Henry replied, "It's a long story. I'll tell you another time." After which they made plans to meet for dinner that evening. After returning home, Max told Henry that the tunnel led through the wall of a green room, so we'll have to seize that green room at any cost. But Henry was preoccupied with getting ready because he had to go on a date with Julie. He asked Max, "How do I look?" Max laughed and said, "You look your best, as always, and go enjoy your date. We'll plan later." During their date, Julie told Henry, "I want to be a big actress. I want everyone to know my name." During their date, Henry told Julie the whole truth about how he was imprisoned and now he really wants to rob a bank. Julie was shocked to hear his plan, but she began to enjoy Henry's company. They returned home, and their closeness grew stronger. The next morning, Henry and Julie went to Max's house. Max was unhappy to see Julie, so Henry told Max, "Don't worry, she worked with us." But then, Max pulled Henry aside and got angry, asking why he told her the whole plan. A little while later, during dinner, Julia asked Max, "What are you doing in jail?" Max replied, "I've committed so many murders." Julie asked him, "You committed so many murders? You weren't afraid of getting caught?" Max replied, "I love going to jail. It's my favorite place." While on their way to the theater, Julia and Henry had the idea, "Why don't we hold auditions in the theater? This way, we'll be able to spend more time there." But a little later, Max had the idea, "Why not fire the actor who owned the green room and give Henry the role? Then we'll just keep digging. No one will know." Henry replied, "I don't know how to act at all." But Max completely floored him. "Look at your face. You're a natural actor. No one could do it better. And after all, it's the lead role." After a while, the actor left the play on his own accord. He claimed he'd landed a role in a major film, but Max had actually fooled him. When Julie learned of this, she was furious. "Are you guys going to ruin my career and be okay with that?" Henry auditioned and was selected. Now it would be easier for them to complete their task. But within a day or two, they realized that the tunnel job wasn't a two-person job, and they decided to bring Joe on board. After much persuasion, Joe agreed. But upon seeing the tunnel, Joe said, "Why all this? Just grab a gun and steal." Max replied, "We don't want to steal like you fools." Gradually, things began to pick up steam. Henry was also incredibly dedicated to his role. He didn't just want money anymore. He wanted to try something new in life. One night, as they were returning home from work, the bank guard who had arrested Henry stopped them. The policeman said, "You're the one who was with the bank robbers, and I've seen you going to the theater from behind the bank many times. I won't let anything go wrong this time." Henry asked the policeman to come with him and then drove the car to a quiet place. Henry asked him what he wanted. Frank explained that once every month, a truck goes to one of our partner banks, collecting all the currency. This bank's vault holds over 1 billion rupees at that time. Only a fool would try to rob the bank at another time. I can act as your inside man and help you with the alarm system. The next day, during Julie's crying scene in the theater, the director told her, "You've never loved anyone, right? You've never had your heart broken. That's your problem. Without this feeling, you'll never be a great actress." Then there was a 5-minute break. Julie went to the bathroom and started crying. Henry asked, "Are you okay?" Julie burst into tears. She said, "Yes, I've never loved anyone. What should I do? But I want to be an actress, right?" Henry replied, "You love me. You just don't know it, and I'm sure you'll be a great actress." Then they both leaned forward and kissed. That night, Max and Henry were planning a heist when there was a knock on the door. Henry opened the door to see Joe and Eddie standing there. Joe looked like he'd just been dismembered. Eddie told Henry, "Joe told me everything, and now I'm in on your plan." But Max didn't like Eddie at all. He asked Henry, "Who is this jerk?" Eddie replied, "I know everything. So now you have no choice." Max asked again, "Can someone tell me who this idiot is?" But Eddie snapped, "I'm in on this plan, and you're out, you old man." Max simply told him to leave. But Eddie teased Max again, calling him old. This time, Max became enraged. He lunged at Eddie, ready to hit him, but Henry intervened. The next day, Max and Henry went to the theater and learned that their show would be over in just a few days, and this upset both of them. Henry said, "I don't think we'll be able to steal anymore." In fact, he had also fallen in love with Julie. They would have to steal and escape, but he didn't want to be away from her. Then Max grabbed Henry and said, "You called me out of jail to help you, and now you're refusing. I've spent my whole life just talking. I was in jail for a long time. Now that I'm out, I'm going to pull off a crime." Henry and Julie met at night. Henry told Julie, "We have to rob the bank on the first day of the show, and then I'll run away to California. You have to work in Hollywood, too. You'll meet me there, right?" But Julie's anger exploded upon hearing this. She said, "If you were going to leave, why did you make me believe in love? You've only used me to get into the theater. I'll never find you again. It's my fault that I fell in love with a thief." Suddenly, the day of the show arrived, and so did the day of the bank robbery. The play's director told all the actors, "Today's your day. Go ahead and make your mark. We only have 10 minutes left." Just then, the truckload of money arrived at the bank, just as the policeman had predicted. Henry continued acting well in the play and, seeing the opportunity, went to help his companions. Everything was going according to their plan. First, they broke down the brick wall with a tool, and then, using a large welding machine, cut a large hole in the safe's iron. Max had already cut the wire upon receiving the policeman's signal, which prevented the alarm from going off. But then, Eddie pointed a gun at Max and told him to leave quietly. Eddie told Joe to quickly load all the money into the car. Joe didn't like Eddie's actions and said, "Don't do this, brother. This is not right." Just then, Henry arrived, and Eddie tried to scare him too, hitting Max with the gun, knocking him down, who had repeatedly told him not to do so. Max snatched the gun from Eddie's hand and began beating him. During this, the bullet went off, grazed Henry's leg. Meanwhile, Henry's scene was about to air in the theater, so he quickly left, limping slightly, to perform his scene. After beating Eddie thoroughly, Max bound his hands, feet, and mouth. A short while later, Henry, Max, and Joe took all the money and fled. Henry suddenly demanded that the car be stopped. Joe and Max didn't understand why he was doing this. They stopped the car. Henry told them to run, saying, "I'll see you later." When Joe asked Max, "Where did it go?" Max replied, "To hell with it. You just drive." Henry ran back to the theater. Julia was performing on stage. Just then, limping slightly, Henry quickly climbed onto the stage. He told Julia, "I can't leave you. I really love you and I can't live without you." back at the plate, too.